Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to talk about a word you hear all the time, but what does it really mean? Commodity. It's one of those fundamental concepts that, honestly, secretly runs our entire world. And by the end of this, you'll know exactly what it is and why it's so important.
All right, let's just jump right in with a little puzzle. Take a look at this list. You've got corn, you've got gold, crude oil, even live cattle. I mean, on the surface, this just looks like a totally random shopping list, right?
And that really is the central question for us today. What on earth is the one crucial thing that connects a precious metal, a farm animal, and a fossil fuel? The answer, it turns out, gets right to the very heart of how global trade works. So here's how we're going to break it all down. We'll start with a basic definition, then we'll unlock the absolute key concept, which is fungibility. After that, we'll clear up some confusing terms, look at how these things are traded, see how normal products can become commodities, and then wrap it all up with why any of this actually matters to you. Okay, section 1. What is a commodity? At its most basic, you could say it's just a marketable item produced to satisfy a want or a need. But that's way too broad. That could be almost anything. The real definition is a lot more specific and, frankly, a lot more interesting. And that brings us to the one single idea you absolutely have to grasp to understand commodities. The key, the secret sauce, is a concept called fungibility. This one word is what separates a pile of copper from, say, an iPhone.
Fungibility. It's a fancy word, but it just means that one unit of something is practically identical to any other unit. So, a bushel of grade number 2 corn is the same whether it was grown in Iowa or Nebraska. A troy ounce of pure gold is a troy ounce of pure gold, whether it came from a mine in South Africa or Canada. And because they're interchangeable, they can be traded in massive quantities all over the world, sight unseen.
This quote from Karl Marx just nails the concept of fungibility perfectly. From the taste of wheat, it is not possible to tell who produced it. The origin, the brand, who made it, none of that matters. The product is uniform, and that's what gives it its power in the market. And this slide really breaks down that difference for us. You look at a commodity like copper. It's interchangeable, its price is set by the global market. But then you've got a product, like a stereo system. It's unique. You care about the brand, the features, and the price is set by the company that made it. You can't just swap one for another and expect the same thing. Okay, moving on. Now, people often get the word commodity mixed up with two other terms, resource and raw material. They're all related, for sure, but they are different, so let's get these definitions straight. Let's start with the biggest, widest category, a resource. Think of a resource as any supply that you can draw on to create wealth. A country's oil reserves deep in the ground, that's a resource. But so is its workforce, its forests, even its available cash. It's the total potential supply of something valuable. All right, now let's narrow it down to a raw material. This is the actual physical stuff that's used to make other things. It's the unprocessed cotton that's going to become your t-shirt or the iron ore that will become steel for a building. It's the input. And that brings us right back to our star player. A commodity is a raw material that has become standardized, is fungible, and is actively traded on a market. So think of it this way. Crude oil deep in the ground is a resource. Once it's pumped out, it's a raw material. And when it's being traded as barrels of a specific grade, like West Texas Intermediate, that's when it's a commodity.
All right, so now we know what commodities are. But what kinds are actually out there being traded? Well, they generally fall into a few major categories.
So the classic way to split them up is between hard and soft commodities. Hard commodities are mined or extracted from the earth, things like gold, copper, iron ore. Soft commodities, on the other hand, are agricultural products. They are grown or raised, like wheat, coffee, sugar, and livestock. And then there's a third huge group, energy commodities, like crude oil and natural gas, that basically fuel our entire economy. Yeah, this slide gives you a perfect visual. On one side, you've got coffee, a classic soft commodity. It's cultivated, it's harvested. On the other side, coal, a hard commodity that's literally dug out of the ground. Two completely different origins, but they both end up as standardized goods traded on a global market. And look, this trading isn't just happening in some back room. It takes place on these highly organized, massive commodity exchanges, like the Chicago Board of Trade or the London Metal Exchange. These places are the nerve centers where global supply meets global demand to set the price for everything from soybeans to aluminum. Okay, now here's where things get really dynamic.
Because the line between a unique product and a generic commodity, well, it isn't fixed. In fact, many products we use are on a journey towards becoming commodities through a process called commoditization.
So what is commoditization? Well, it's what happens when all the unique features that used to separate different brands just start to disappear. As the knowledge and the technology to make something spreads, the differences between competitors fade. And when that happens, customers start buying based on just one thing: price.
Generic pharmaceuticals are a perfect example of this. Once a drug's patent expires, anyone can make the exact same chemical compound. It becomes a commodity. We also see this with computer parts like DRM chips or even something as simple as multivitamins. A 50 milligram calcium tablet is a 50 milligram calcium tablet, no matter what brand is on the bottle.
Okay, final section. We've defined them, we've categorized them, and we've seen how they evolve. Now for the big one, why should you even care? Well, because whether you realize it or not, commodities affect nearly every single aspect of our lives. In your daily life, commodity prices are the reason the cost of your groceries goes up and down, why you pay what you pay for gas, and why your electricity bill changes. On a much bigger scale, huge pension funds invest in commodities to protect their value. And maybe most critically, the global scramble for resources like oil, gas, and critical minerals can define alliances, start trade wars, and sometimes even lead to actual war. But here's a tragic irony. For some countries, having a huge wealth of natural resources can actually be a curse. There's this phenomenon called the resource curse, and it happens when a nation's economy gets way too dependent on exporting one raw material. It can hollow out other sectors, and it can fuel corruption and conflict as different groups fight for control over that wealth, a tragedy we've seen play out in places like the Democratic Republic of Congo. So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's that commodities are so much more than just items on a list. They are the fundamental, standardized building blocks that form the invisible foundation of our incredibly complex global economy. If you understand them, you start to understand the flow of money and power around the entire world. And that leaves us with a final question to chew on. As technology just keeps getting better at standardizing more and more of the things we use every day, what unique product that you love today is going to become the next great interchangeable commodity of tomorrow?